The world my mother built was exactly 35 millimeters wide and saturated with artificial light. Growing up in the Sterling household, life wasn't measured in milestones or memories, it was measured in aesthetic value. My mother, Victoria Sterling, was a pioneer of the early influencer era, a woman who had successfully monetized her perfect family. My two older sisters were carbon copies of her, willow-thin, blonde, and possessed of that symmetrical porcelain beauty that the camera loved. And then there was me, Cassandra. I was the glitch in the matrix. I had my father's broad shoulders, stubborn skin that refused to be clear, and a face that didn't fit into the high-contrast, overexposed world Victoria curated. The breaking point happened on my 18th birthday. It was supposed to be a celebration, but in the Sterling house, it was a brand launch. Victoria had organized a gala with a Mediterranean theme. I remember standing in the foyer, wearing a dress that felt like a straitjacket, when my mother stopped me. She looked at me through her phone's screen, not her own eyes. "Cassandra, darling, the lighting in the main hall is very unforgiving today," she said, her voice like honey mixed with glass. "Your texture is particularly prominent. The sponsors are here. We need the family portrait to be flawless. Perhaps you could stay in the library. We'll tell people you've come down with a migraine. It's better for the aesthetic, don't you think?" "You're hiding me at my own birthday party, Mom?" I asked, the sting of years of helpful critiques finally coming to a head. "I'm protecting the image, Cassandra, an image that pays for your tuition and those expensive dermatologists you clearly aren't listening to. You're a thorn in a garden of roses. Just for tonight, stay out of the frame." I didn't stay in the library. I left. I took a small backpack, my savings from a part-time job Victoria didn't know about, and I walked out of the mansion. When she realized I had actually left, she didn't call to apologize. She sent a voice note. "If you can't be part of the brand, you're a liability. Don't come back until you've fixed yourself. I won't have my legacy dragged down by your lack of effort." I spent the next 5 years in a tiny studio apartment above a pharmacy, working 3 jobs, but every night I was in my lab, the bathroom sink. I was tired of fixing myself. I was tired of heavy foundations that felt like wet cement and filters that erased the very things that made people human. I started experimenting with raw ingredients, focusing on skin acceptance rather than skin correction. I wanted products that celebrated pores, freckles, and real life. I launched Vera, Latin for truth, with a single product, a luminous blur that didn't hide skin but highlighted it. My marketing was the opposite of my mother's. No filters, no Photoshop, no perfect models. I used real people with acne scars, vitiligo, and wrinkles. The world was starving for it. Vera exploded. Within 3 years, we were the fastest-growing cosmetic brand in history. We weren't just selling makeup, we were selling the right to exist without an apology. I became the CEO of an empire worth $500 million, but I kept my face off the official corporate page. To the public, I was C.S. Miller, the enigmatic founder who let the products speak for themselves. I changed my last name to my grandmother's. I dyed my hair, found my own style, and built a wall of high-level PR between me and my past. Meanwhile, the Sterling aesthetic was crumbling. The world had moved on from Victoria's hyper-filtered perfection. Her engagement dropped, her sponsors fled, torn logistics, her husband's side business, had collapsed, and Victoria was desperate. She had pivoted into beauty distribution, trying to use her old name to stay relevant, but she needed a titan to back her. She needed Vera. This morning, I sat in my glass-walled office at the Vera HQ, looking at the meeting schedule. My secretary, Sarah, walked in with a smirk. The representative from Sterling Global Distribution is in the lobby, Miss Miller. She's been waiting for an hour. She says it's a matter of life and death for her firm. She's quite persistent. Let her in, Sarah, I said, turning my chair toward the window so my back was to the door. And make sure the no filters lighting is at its highest setting. I want her to see every detail of this room. The door opened. I heard the familiar, rhythmic click of Victoria's designer heels. I heard the sharp, frantic intake of breath that she used whenever she was about to perform. Miss Miller, Victoria began, her voice trembling with a desperation she tried to mask with practiced charm. Thank you so much for seeing me. I've followed Vera since the beginning. Your message, your body positivity, it's simply revolutionary. My firm, Sterling Global, is ready to take you into the European markets. We have the history, the prestige. Please, we just need this contract. Without Vera, we're facing liquidation. Prestige is a fickle thing, Victoria, I said. Low, I still hadn't turned around. I heard you once told a member of your own family that they were a liability to your brand, that they ruined the photo. Why would a brand built on truth want to work with a woman built on lies? That was a mistake, Victoria stammered, clearly taken aback that the enigmatic CEO knew her history. A private family matter. I've changed. I see the value in realness now. Please, I'm practically on my knees. I'll do whatever it takes, just give us a chance to be part of the frame. I slowly turned my chair around. I wasn't wearing the fixed face she had demanded 8 years ago. I was wearing my skin, unfiltered, glowing, and real. I saw the moment recognition hit her. I saw the way her eyes widened, the way her expensive handbag slipped from her hand. Cassandra? She whispered, her face pale under a thick layer of outdated foundation. Hello, Victoria, I said, leaning forward. I think the lighting in here is perfect today, don't you? I'm going to pause here. If you've ever been told you weren't enough for someone else's image only to build an empire out of your own flaws, I want you to comment the word unfiltered, because the contract is on the desk, the mother is in shock, and the girl she cropped out is now the one holding the lens.
My dear ones, thank you for listening to this story. It makes me incredibly happy to feel that you are here with me. I try my best for you and post new videos every day, putting a piece of myself into them. If my stories resonate with you, your subscription and viewing of other videos will be the warmest support for me and inspiration to continue telling stories.
The silence in my office was heavy, broken only by the hum of the climate control and the distant, rhythmic ticking of a clock that sounded like a countdown to Victoria's social demise. My mother stood there, her mouth slightly agape, looking at me as if I were a ghost that had suddenly developed a multi-billion-dollar valuation. She looked at my skin, my real, textured, human skin, and I could see her brain trying to apply a mental filter to the reality in front of her. She looked for the fix she had demanded, but all she found was a woman who had turned her refusal to conform into a global currency. "Cassie," she finally whispered, her voice cracking, Is it really you? We looked for you. We filed a missing persons report. We were heartbroken." "You filed a status report, Victoria," I said, leaning back in my ergonomic chair. "You told the press I was studying abroad to avoid the embarrassment of my 18th birthday, and the only thing broken in that house was the lens you used to look at me. Let's skip the mother-daughter reunion. You didn't come here for a daughter. You came here for a lifeline." Victoria straightened her blazer, her professional mask sliding back into place with a practiced, desperate jerk. You've done well for yourself, Cassandra. It's a miracle. I'm proud of you, truly. And as your mother, I think it's only right that we keep this success within the family. Sterling Global is struggling because the market has become confused. But with your products and my legacy, we could dominate. Stop, I said, raising a hand. You're still talking about legacy. You're still talking about dominating. You haven't looked at a single one of Vera's quarterly reports, have you? My customers don't want your legacy. They want the truth. And the truth is, Sterling Global is a toxic brand. You represent everything Vera stands against: exclusion, shame, and the commodification of insecurity. We can change. Victoria stepped forward, her hands trembling. I can pivot. I'll do a public campaign about mother and daughter, the new face of beauty. It'll be the biggest PR move of the decade. People love a redemption arc, Cassie. They love seeing the ugly duckling return as the swan and forgive her mother. I was never an ugly duckling, Victoria. I was just a girl who didn't want to be a doll, I said, my voice hardening. And I don't believe in redemption arcs that are bought with a distribution contract. If you want Vera, if you want to save your firm, you don't get a swan campaign. You get an audit, a public one. I pulled a document from my desk and slid it toward her. It wasn't a contract. It was a manifesto of accountability. If you want Sterling Global to distribute Vera in Europe, you must first issue a public apology, not just to me, but to the thousands of girls you've shamed through your Sterling aesthetic campaigns over the last 20 years. You will post an unfiltered video, no makeup, no ring light, no edits, admitting that your brand was built on artificial standards. You will admit that you exiled your own daughter because she didn't fit your feed, and you will donate 60% of your distribution profits to the Real Skin Foundation for Youth Mental Health. Victoria looked at the document as if it were a death warrant. You want me to go on camera without a filter? To tell people I was wrong? To admit I threw you out? Cassandra, that would destroy me. I'm an icon. My followers, they wouldn't understand. Then I suppose you don't understand the value of Vera, I said, standing up. You're dismissed, Victoria. Sarah will show you out. As she retreated, her heels clicking a much slower, more defeated rhythm, I felt a strange sense of emptiness. I had won, but the victory felt clinical. I looked at the security feed of the lobby. Victoria didn't just walk out, she collapsed into a chair for a moment, her face buried in her hands. For the first time, she looked her age. But the Sterling family wasn't just Victoria. That evening, I received a notification on my private encrypted server. Someone had attempted to breach the Vera formulation vault, a digital fortress where we kept the proprietary blend for our luminous blur technology. It was a crude attempt, a brute force attack coming from a residential IP address in Beverly Hills. I didn't need a detective to know who it was. My sisters, Beatrice and Bianca. In their world, if you can't buy the miracle, you steal it. I sat in my darkened apartment watching the data logs. They were desperate. Their perfect careers were fading as the industry shifted towards the authenticity Vera had championed. They were no longer the it girls. They were the has-beens of the filter era. The phone rang. It was Beatrice. "Hi, Cassie." Her voice was chirpy, but there was a tremor of anxiety underneath. "Look, we heard about the meeting with Mom. She's a bit of a dinosaur, right? We totally get why you're mad. But Bianca and we've been thinking, we could be the Vera sisters. We could launch a subline. You know, the Sterling Selection. We have the followers, Cassie. We have the reach. We just need the formula. Let us in on the ground floor and we'll drop Mom and her distribution firm entirely. You're trying to hack my servers while we're on the phone, Beatrice? I asked, looking at the glowing red access denied alerts on my screen. The silence on the other end was absolute. You always were the clever one, Bianca's voice came through on the speaker. But listen to us, Cassie. We're sisters. We're blood. You can't let us drown just because Mom was a bitch to you when you were a teenager. We need this. If we don't have a new launch by next month, our sponsors are going to drop us. We'll lose the house. We'll lose everything. You won't lose everything, Bianca. You'll just lose your aesthetic. You'll have to live a real life, like I did, like the millions of people who buy my products do every day. You're a monster, Beatrice hissed. You're sitting on a throne of body positivity while you let your own family starve. Where's the love in that? Where's the acceptance? Acceptance doesn't mean enabling your toxicity, and just so you know, my system has already logged your IP addresses. One more attempt to breach the vault, and I'll send the logs to the authorities. Don't call me again. If you want to talk to my legal team. I hung up. I looked out over the city, the lights blurring like a soft focus filter I didn't need. My family had spent their lives trying to curate a reality that didn't exist, and now they were drowning in the gaps between the frames. The next morning, the redemption started. Victoria Sterling posted a video. It was shaky. The lighting was poor, natural sunlight coming through a window, hitting her face at a harsh angle. She wasn't wearing foundation. Her skin was sallow. Her eyes were tired, and for the first time in 60 years, the world saw the real Victoria. I have spent my life building a lie. I have sold you perfection that didn't exist, and in my pursuit of that perfection, I hurt the person I should have loved most. I told my daughter she was a liability because she was real. I was wrong. I am the liability. I am the one who is broken. The video went viral instantly. The comments were a battlefield. Some praised her for her bravery, but most were cynical. They saw it for what it was, a desperate move by a dying brand. But I saw something else. I saw the fear in her eyes. Not the fear of losing money, but the fear of being seen. And in that fear, I found the final piece of my audit. I called Sarah. Draft the distribution contract for Sterling Global, but add a new clause. Victoria doesn't run the company anymore. It will be a trust-managed entity, and all marketing decisions must be approved by Vera's ethics committee. And tell Beatrice and Bianca they have 24 hours to delete their social media accounts and sign a 5-year NDA, or I'll proceed with the hacking charges. You're giving her the contract? Sarah asked, surprised. I'm giving her a job, I said. She's going to spend the next 5 years touring schools, talking about the dangers of digital dysmorphia. She wanted to be a face. Now she's going to be the face of the lie. That's her penance. I'm going to pause here. If you've ever realized that the best revenge isn't to
There is a particular kind of silence that follows a public confession, a fragile peace that usually precedes a much louder explosion. After Victoria's unfiltered video went viral, the stock for Sterling Global stabilized, and for a few days I allowed myself to believe that the truth had finally won. I watched the metrics of Vera grow, not just as a company, but as a movement. We were becoming the gold standard for ethics and beauty. But while I was focused on the light, my mother was rediscovering her comfort in the dark. It started with a whisper from my R&D department. Dr. Eris, our head chemist, walked into my office without knocking. He looked pale, holding a sleek silver bottle that bore the logo of Ethereal, our biggest rival, a conglomerate known for its ageless campaigns and its use of aggressive, undisclosed synthetics. Cassandra, we ran a spectral analysis on Ethereal's new Ghost Light serum. It's a near-identical match for our luminous blur formula. The molecular structure is 95% the same, but they've replaced our organic stabilizing agent with a cheap, high-yield polymer called dioxin Z. My heart went cold. Dioxin Z? That was banned in the EU 3 years ago due to long-term skin toxicity. How did they get our base formula? The vault was never breached. It wasn't a digital breach, Cassandra, Eris replied, looking at the floor. The synthesis logs for the beta testing phase were accessed manually from a terminal in the distribution wing, your mother's wing. I felt the familiar, jagged sting of betrayal. Victoria hadn't just given a video, she had given a performance to lower my guard. While she was playing the penitent mother on camera, she was selling Vera's soul to Ethereal to secure her own financial future. She didn't want a job or a penance, she wanted a comeback, and if she couldn't own Vera, she would ensure Ethereal could destroy it. And there's more, Eris added. Dioxin Z provides an instant, incredible glow, better than ours. But in 6 weeks, the skin's barrier will start to collapse. It causes chronic inflammation. If this hits the shelves, millions of women will be using a product that is effectively a chemical burn disguised as a miracle. I sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. This wasn't just about my family anymore. This was a public health crisis in the making. Sarah, I buzzed my secretary, track Victoria's phone and find out who she met with at Ethereal. Now. The data came back within 30 minutes. Victoria hadn't just met with a representative, she had been hosting secret dinners with Julian Vane. Not the same Julian from the Thorn story, but his cousin, Marcus Vane, the CEO of Ethereal. The Vane family, it seemed, was a recurring infection in the world of high finance. They had offered Victoria a seat on their board and a 10% stake in Ghostlight in exchange for the truth about Vera's secret ingredient. I didn't call the police, I didn't send a legal warning, I did something much more unfiltered. I invited Victoria to my apartment for dinner. I told it was to celebrate her progress and to sign the final distribution papers. She arrived looking radiant, too radiant. Her skin had that artificial glassy sheen that only Dioxin Z could provide. She was using the stolen prototype. She was literally wearing her betrayal on her face. "Oh, Cassie, this place is magnificent," she cooed, gliding into the room. "I'm so glad we've put the past behind us. The family is finally coming back together. Beatrice and Bianca are even talking about going to culinary school. Can you imagine? Real life, just like you said." "Is it real life, Victoria, or is it just another filter?" I asked, pouring her a glass of wine. I didn't sit down. I stayed by the window, watching the city. "Your skin looks remarkable. It's glowing, almost like it's being lit from within by a chemical reaction." Victoria's hand froze for a fraction of a second. She took a sip of wine, her eyes darting around the room. "It's just happiness, darling, and a little bit of that new serum from Ethereal. They sent me a sample. They're such a lovely company, really. They reached out to me to apologize for their past ads. They want to be more like Vera." "They don't want to be like Vera, Victoria. They want to be Vera, and you gave them the keys." I turned around and placed the spectral analysis report on the table. Next to it, I placed the security footage of her entering the distribution wing at 3 a.m. 2 weeks ago. "You stole the formula, you sold it to Marcus Vane, and you didn't even check if what they were making was safe.
You were so desperate for a board seat that you're willing to poison the very women who believed your apology. Victoria's face transformed. The penitent mother mask fell away, revealing a woman who was terrified of being nothing once again. "I did it for us, Cassandra," she hissed, standing up. "Ethereal has more power than you'll ever have. Vera is a boutique brand, a trend. Ethereal is a mountain. I was securing our future. They promised me that once Ghostlight launched, they would buy Vera for $3 billion. We'd be the richest family in the industry. You wouldn't have to work another day in your life." "I don't work for the money, Victoria. I work for the truth, something you've clearly never understood." "The truth is for people who can afford to be ugly," she screamed. "In this world, if you're not perfect, you're invisible. I refused to let us be invisible." "You're already invisible, Mother," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Look in the mirror." I pointed to the large, ornate mirror in my hallway. Under the specialized UV lighting I had installed for the evening, the dioxin Z on her face glowed a sickly neon green. It highlighted every patch of inflammation that was already beginning to form. "That glow? That's the polymer bonding to your cells. In a month, your skin will be covered in sores. Marcus Vane didn't give you a sample. He used you as a lab rat, and now he's going to use you as the scapegoat." What are you talking about?" Victoria stumbled toward the mirror, her eyes wide with horror as she saw the neon green mask. "I've already contacted the FDA, but I didn't tell them it was Marcus Vane's fault. I told them that Sterling Global, your firm, was caught trying to manufacture a counterfeit version of Vera's formula using illegal chemicals. I have the logs of you accessing the vault. I have the footage of you delivering the samples to Ethereal's couriers." "You're framing me?" "No, I'm just letting the math of your choices play out. You wanted to be the face of the brand. Now you're the face of the scandal. Ethereal will deny everything. They'll say you approached them with a miracle and they were duped by your reputation. You'll be the one who goes to prison, not Marcus, not me." Victoria collapsed onto the floor, the silver bottle of Ghostlight rolling away from her. The woman who had spent 40 years trying to be the perfect Rose was now just a person on the ground glowing green in the dark. "Cassie, please, I'm your mother." "A mother doesn't poison her daughter's life," I said. "A mother doesn't sell out her child's dream for a board seat. You chose the filter, Victoria. Now you have to live with the distortion." I walked to the door and opened it. 2 men in suits were waiting in the hallway. Not police, my own private security. "Take her to the clinic," I said. "We'll treat the chemical burns, but after that, she goes to the federal building. She's going to give a full, sworn statement about Marcus Vane. If she tells the truth, I'll provide the best legal defense money can buy. If she lies, she's on her own." As they led her away, I picked up the silver bottle. I looked at the Ethereal logo. The war wasn't over. My mother was just the first domino. Marcus Vane thought he could buy the truth and dilute it with poison. He was about to find out that unfiltered doesn't just mean showing your skin, it means showing no mercy to those who try to ruin it.
My dear ones, thank you for listening to this story. It makes me incredibly happy to feel that you are here with me. I try my best for you and post new videos every day, putting a piece of myself into them. If my stories resonate with you, your subscription and viewing of other videos will be the warmest support for me and inspiration to continue telling stories.
The corporate world is a theater of optics, and Marcus Vane was its most seasoned director. By the time Victoria was safely tucked away in a private clinic to treat the chemical burns caused by Ethereal's prototype, the Ghostlight marketing machine had already shifted into overdrive. Billboards appeared overnight, featuring airbrushed perfection that made my mother's old campaigns look like amateur hour. They were using a stolen version of my truth, wrapping it in the high-gloss lies of a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. Marcus Vane didn't just want to compete with Vera, he wanted to replace it, to sanitize the body positivity movement back into something that required a subscription to his toxic synthetics. I sat in the Vera war room, surrounded by my legal team and Dr. Eris. The atmosphere was thick with the scent of coffee and the cold electricity of an impending strike. Sarah said Marcus is launching the global rollout in 6 hours, pointing to a countdown on a massive screen. They've bought the lead slot on every major streaming platform. They're calling it the evolution of truth. It's a direct slap in our face, Cassandra. If we don't stop the launch, the Dioxin Z will be in the hands of 10 million consumers by the weekend. We can't just sue them, I said, looking at the spectral analysis reports. Their lawyers will bury us in discovery for 5 years while the damage is done. We need a public intervention. We need to trigger the Mirror Protocol. The Mirror Protocol was a contingency I had developed for exactly this scenario. It wasn't a legal move, it was a transparency bomb. I had spent the last week setting up a live, decentralized broadcast that would bypass traditional media gatekeepers, the same ones Marcus Vane had in his pocket. "Are you sure about this, Cassandra?" Dr. Eris asked. "If you go on air and this backfires, your reputation is gone. They'll call you a conspiracy theorist. They'll say you're just a jealous daughter trying to sabotage a competitor." "I'm not a daughter today, Eris. I'm an auditor of reality, and I have 2 witnesses Marcus never accounted for." I looked toward the back of the room. Beatrice and Bianca stepped out from the shadows. They didn't look like models anymore. Beatrice's hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and Bianca was wearing a sweatshirt that had a small coffee stain on the sleeve. For the first time in their lives, they looked like sisters instead of assets. "We're ready, Cassie," Beatrice said, her voice trembling but certain. "We found the original emails the Vane Group, sent to Mom. Marcus didn't just want the formula. He told Mom that once Vera was destroyed, he would launch a recovery line specifically for the skin damage his own product caused. He was creating the poison and the cure at the same time. "It's time," I said. At exactly 8 p.m., as Marcus Vane stood on a stage in New York to launch Ghostlight, every screen in the gala and millions of smartphones worldwide flickered. The high-gloss ad for Ethereal was suddenly overwritten by a feed from a sterile, brightly lit lab. I was standing in the center of the frame. No makeup, no soft focus filters, just me, Cassandra Miller, with the fluorescent lights reflecting off the real pores and the minor imperfections of my skin. "My name is Cassandra Miller, the founder of Vera, and tonight I'm not here to sell you a dream. I'm here to prevent a nightmare." The audience in New York went silent. On the side of the stage, I saw Marcus Vane's face go from triumphant to ghostly white. He signaled for the text to cut the feed, but my decentralized network held. "This is Ghostlight by Ethereal, and this is a spectral analysis of what's inside. It contains Dioxin Z, a band polymer that gives you an instant glow by bonding to your cellular structure. It looks like a miracle for 30 days. On day 31, it begins to destroy your skin's ability to regenerate." I pointed to a second screen behind me. "Here are the data Marcus Vane didn't want you to see. Internal testing reports from Ethereal's own labs dated 3 months ago, confirming catastrophic barrier failure in 70% of test subjects." The feed switched. Now Beatrice and Bianca were on screen. "We are the Sterling sisters," Beatrice said, looking directly into the lens. Our mother, Victoria Sterling, was the one who delivered the stolen Vera formula to Marcus. She did it because she was desperate for the fame she lost. But Marcus didn't care about her. He used her as a human test subject. We have the medical records of the damage she suffered using the very product Marcus is holding in his hand right now. The crowd in New York began to murmur, then to shout. Marcus tried to grab the microphone, but the security I had hired, men and women who had been fired from Ethereal for whistleblowing, blocked him. This industry has spent a century telling you that you are a problem that needs to be solved. Marcus Vane thinks your insecurity is a gold mine. He thinks he can steal the language of body positivity to sell you a chemical burn. But the truth is unfiltered. The truth has a texture, and the truth cannot be bought. I ended the broadcast by displaying the link to a public server containing every document, every email, and every chemical test. Within seconds, the Ghostlight launch wasn't a celebration, it was a crime scene. Federal agents, who had been briefed by my team hours earlier, entered the New York gala. They didn't come for the champagne, they came for Marcus Vane. As the screen went dark, I sat down in my office and exhaled. Beatrice walked over and put a hand on my shoulder. "You did it, Cassie. You actually did it." "No," I said, looking at the thousands of messages flooding in from women who were throwing away their ethereal samples. "We just balanced the books, but the Sterling name? It's officially over. Are you okay with that?" "The Sterling name was a filter, Cassie," Bianca said, sitting on the edge of the desk. "I think I'm ready to see what the rest of the world looks like without it." I'm going to pause here. If you've ever had to expose a powerful lie to protect the people you serve, I want you to comment the word visibility, because the mountain has fallen, the face of the industry is finally real, and the audit of the beauty world has only just begun. The corporate world is a theater of optics, and Marcus Vane was its most seasoned director. By the time Victoria was safely tucked away in a private clinic to treat the chemical burns caused by Ethereal's prototype, the Ghostlight marketing machine had already shifted into overdrive. Billboards appeared overnight, featuring airbrushed perfection that made my mother's old campaigns look like amateur hour. They were using a stolen version of my truth, wrapping it in the high-gloss lies of a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. Marcus Vane didn't just want to compete with Vera, he wanted to replace it, to sanitize the body positivity movement back into something that required a subscription to his toxic synthetics. I sat in the Vera war room, surrounded by my legal team and Dr. Eris. The atmosphere was thick with the scent of coffee and the cold electricity of an impending strike. Sarah said Marcus is launching the global rollout in 6 hours, pointing to a countdown on a massive screen. They've bought the lead slot on every major streaming platform. They're calling it the evolution of truth. It's a direct slap in our face, Cassandra. If we don't stop the launch, the Dioxin Z will be in the hands of 10 million consumers by the weekend. "We can't just sue them," I said, looking at the spectral analysis reports. "Their lawyers will bury us in discovery for 5 years while the damage is done. We need a public intervention. We need to trigger the Mirror Protocol." The Mirror Protocol was a contingency I had developed for exactly this scenario. It wasn't a legal move, it was a transparency bomb. I had spent the last week setting up a live, decentralized broadcast that would bypass traditional media gatekeepers, the same ones Marcus Vane had in his pocket. "Are you sure about this, Cassandra?" Dr. Eris asked. "If you go on air and this backfires, your reputation is gone. They'll call you a conspiracy theorist. They'll say you're just a jealous daughter trying to sabotage a competitor." I'm not a daughter today, heiress. I'm an auditor of reality, and I have 2 witnesses Marcus never accounted for. I looked toward the back of the room. Beatrice and Bianca stepped out from the shadows. They didn't look like models anymore. Beatrice's hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and Bianca was wearing a sweatshirt that had a small coffee stain on the sleeve. For the first time in their lives, they looked like sisters instead of assets. "We're ready, Cassie," Beatrice said, her voice trembling but certain. "We found the original emails the Vane group, sent to Mom. Marcus didn't just want the formula. He told Mom that once Vera was destroyed, he would launch a recovery line specifically for the skin damage his own product caused. He was creating the poison and the cure at the same time." "It's time," I said. At exactly 8 p.m., as Marcus Vane stood on a stage in New York to launch Ghostlight, every screen in the gala and millions of smartphones worldwide flickered. The high-gloss ad for Ethereal was suddenly overwritten by a feed from a sterile, brightly lit lab. I was standing in the center of the frame. No makeup, no soft focus filters, just me, Cassandra Miller, with the fluorescent lights reflecting off the real pores and the minor imperfections of my skin. "My name is Cassandra Miller, the founder of Vera, and tonight I'm not here to sell you a dream. I'm here to prevent a nightmare." The audience in New York went silent. On the side of the stage, I saw Marcus Vane's face go from triumphant to ghostly white. He signaled for the text to cut the feed, but my decentralized network held. "This is Ghostlight by Ethereal, and this is a spectral analysis of what's inside. It contains dioxin Z, a band polymer that gives you an instant glow by bonding to your cellular structure. It looks like a miracle for 30 days. On day 31, it begins to destroy your skin's ability to regenerate." I pointed to a second screen behind me. "Here are the data Marcus Vane didn't want you to see. Internal testing reports from Ethereal's own labs dated 3 months ago, confirming catastrophic barrier failure in 70% of test subjects." The feed switched. Now Beatrice and Bianca were on screen. "We are the Sterling sisters," Beatrice said, looking directly into the lens. "Our mother, Victoria Sterling, was the one who delivered the stolen Vera formula to Marcus. She did it because she was desperate for the fame she lost. But Marcus didn't care about her. He used her as a human test subject. We have the medical records of the damage she suffered using the very product Marcus is holding in his hand right now." The crowd in New York began to murmur, then to shout. Marcus tried to grab the microphone, but the security I had hired, men and women who had been fired from Ethereal for whistleblowing, blocked him. "This industry has spent a century telling you that you are a problem that needs to be solved. Marcus Vane thinks your insecurity is a gold mine. He thinks he can steal the language of body positivity to sell you a chemical burn. But the truth is unfiltered. The truth has a texture, and the truth cannot be bought." I ended the broadcast by displaying the link to a public server containing every document, every email, and every chemical test. Within seconds, the Ghostlight launch wasn't a celebration, it was a crime scene. Federal agents, who had been briefed by my team hours earlier, entered the New York gala. They didn't come for the champagne, they came for Marcus Vane. As the screen went dark, I sat down in my office and exhaled. Beatrice walked over and put a hand on my shoulder. "You did it, Cassie. You actually did it." "No," I said, looking at the thousands of messages flooding in from women who were throwing away their ethereal samples. "We just balanced the books, but the Sterling name? It's officially over. Are you okay with that?" "The Sterling name was a filter, Cassie," Bianca said, sitting on the edge of the desk. "I think I'm ready to see what the rest of the world looks like without it." I'm going to pause here. If you've ever had to expose a powerful lie to protect the people you serve, I want you to comment the word visibility, because the mountain has fallen, the face of the industry is finally real, and the audit of the beauty world has only just begun.
The hardest part about fighting a shadow is that it doesn't have a throat you can grab. The Aesthetic Council didn't issue a press release or file a lawsuit. They didn't need to. Within 48 hours of my encounter with the man in the black SUV, the lungs of my company began to fail. Vera was a brand built on specific, high-quality organic ingredients, rare cold-pressed oils from Morocco, sustainably harvested minerals from the Andes, and a very specific rose-water distillate from a small valley in Bulgaria. One by one, the sold-out notifications hit my procurement dashboard. "Cassandra, it's a coordinated blackout," Sarah said, her voice strained as she paced my office. "Our Moroccan supplier just doubled their price and demanded a 5-year upfront payment. The Andean Mineral Cooperative suddenly lost their export license. And the Bulgarian Rose Valley? It was bought out yesterday by a shell company linked to Ethereal. They aren't just outbidding us, they're erasing our supply chain." "They're trying to starve us, Sarah," I said, staring at the global map on my screen. Every green dot representing a partner was turning red. They know we don't use the synthetic fillers they control. They think that by taking away our nature, they force us back into their laboratory. "We have enough stock for 3 weeks of production. After that, we'll have to stop orders. The moment we go dark, the council will launch their affordable alternatives and claim that Vera was just an unsustainable dream." I looked at the map. I didn't see a failure. I saw a challenge in the math. The council owned the traditional ports, the big cooperatives, and the government officials, but they didn't own the people. "We aren't going to fight them at the ports," I said, standing up. "We're going to the source, and we're taking the community with us." I spent the next week in a hyper-focus. I didn't call the council, I didn't beg for mercy. Instead, I launched Project Root. I used Vera's massive social media following, millions of women and men who believed in our mission, to find independent family-owned farms that had been bullied out of the market by the council for years. We offered them a deal. Vera would fund their infrastructure, provide them with fair trade contracts directly, and in return, they would become the secret gardens of the revolution. We used blockchain technology to track every gram of oil, making the supply chain so transparent that any attempt by the council to sabotage it would be visible to the entire world in real time. But the council had another card to play: my family. One evening, Beatrice and Bianca came to my apartment. They looked terrified. "Cassie, they approached us," Beatrice whispered, clutching a manila envelope. "A man from the council. He told us that if we didn't give him the backdoor access to your new root network, they would release the Thorn files, records that our father, Arthur, kept on every illegal transaction Mom ever made, including things that would put her in prison for the rest of her life, despite your help. They want to use Mom as a hostage to get to the farms," Bianca added. "They said that if you don't integrate Vera into their conglomerate by the end of the month, the Sterling name will be destroyed so thoroughly that even your grandmother's name won't save you from the fallout." I looked at my sisters. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the ultimate test of the unfiltered life. Do you want to go back to being roses? Because if you give them what they want, you might get your fame back. You might get your villas in your filters, but you'll be owned forever. Beatrice looked at the envelope, then at the scarred reflection of our mother in a photo on the mantel. "I'm tired of being a rose, Cassie. I'd rather be a thorn." She handed me the envelope. "We didn't give them the access. We recorded the meeting instead." I opened the envelope. Inside weren't just threats against my mother.
There were photos of me, real photos from the night I left home. I was crying, my face red and blotchy, standing under a bus stop sign in the rain. I looked small, broken, and utterly human. They think this is a weapon. I laughed, a sharp, cold sound. They're still using the old playbook. They think shame is the end of the story. They don't realize that in the new world, vulnerability is the only thing that's truly bulletproof. I didn't hide the photo. I didn't pay the counsel. The next morning, I posted the photo myself. The caption: "This is the day Vera was born. No filters, no boardrooms, just a girl who was told she wasn't enough. The aesthetic council tried to use this to blackmail me. They think your pain is a liability. I think it's your foundation. Our supply chain is now 100% independent. We don't need their permission to be beautiful, and we don't need their ports to be powerful. The audit is moving from the lab to the ledger. See you at the shareholders meeting." I'm going to pause here. If you've ever seen a system try to use fear and fake science to silence the truth, I want you to comment the word vitality, because the council is about to learn that you can't flag the truth as unsafe when the world has already tasted the poison of the lie.
My dear ones, thank you for listening to this story. It makes me incredibly happy to feel that you are here with me. I try my best for you and post new videos every day, putting a piece of myself into them. If my stories resonate with you, your subscription and viewing of other videos will be the warmest support for me and inspiration to continue telling stories.
The speed at which a hero becomes a hazard in the digital age is terrifying. It took exactly 4 hours for the Global Health Collective, GHC, to release their report. By noon, the headline was everywhere: "Vera's Organic Miracle, a Toxic Time Bomb?" The report claimed that our Andean minerals contained trace amounts of heavy metals that could lead to neurotoxicity. It didn't matter that the levels they cited were scientifically impossible for our extraction process. The word toxic was enough. By sunset, my dashboard was a sea of red. Sales didn't just drop, they cratered. Our major retail partners, terrified of liability, pulled Vera from their shelves. My root farmers called me in tears, their shipments blocked at borders by health inspectors who seemed to have appeared out of thin air. "It's over, Cassandra," Marcus whispered. Though he wasn't there, I could hear his voice in every headline. "They're not just attacking the product, Sarah," I said, looking at the technical data in the GHC report. "They're attacking the science of nature itself. Look at the signatures on this report. Dr. Julian Hauer, Dr. Elena Vance. These aren't just doctors, they're the same consultants who sat on the Ethereal's advisory board 5 years ago." "But the public doesn't know that," Sarah cried. "The standard says it's dangerous, so they believe it. We're being liquidated by a lie." I stood up and walked to the window. In the street below, I could see a small group of protesters, people who felt betrayed by the brand they had loved, dumping bottles of my luminous blur into the gutter. "If they want a clinical trial," I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous calm, "we'll give them one, but it won't be in a lab. It will be in the town square." I spent the night preparing. I didn't hide. I didn't issue a defensive statement. Instead, I sent a direct message to every major news outlet and every person who had ever bought a Vera product. The event, the live audit. The next morning, I stood on a podium in the center of the city's busiest park. I was surrounded by a transparent glass booth. Inside the booth were 3 independent, world-renowned toxicologists who had no ties to the council. They had brought their own equipment, unsealed on camera. "For the last 24 hours, you've been told that my dream is a poison. The Aesthetic Council and the GHC want you to fear the truth because they cannot control it.
Today, I am putting my own health on the line. I will be undergoing a series of rapid blood tests and skin biopsies live on this stage. And at the same time, we will be testing the standard products the GHC recommends as safe. The crowd went silent. This was unheard of. For the next 6 hours, the world watched a live audit of human biology. The independent doctors took samples of my blood and analyzed the mineral levels in real time. They tested the root supplies directly from the crates. The results for Cassandra Miller's blood work, the lead toxicologist, his voice booming through the speakers, show zero evidence of neurotoxicity. In fact, the mineral absorption is well within the safest parameters of human health. The GHC report is not just flawed, it appears to be fabricated. But I wasn't finished. Now, I said, holding up a bottle of Ethereal's Safe Standard Foundation, the one the GHC had explicitly endorsed, let's test the standard. The doctors applied the Ethereal product to a synthetic skin membrane and ran a deep layer analysis. Within minutes, the screens behind me began to flash red. "Warning," the doctor said, his face hardening. "This product contains undisclosed levels of dioxin Z stabilizers, the very chemical Miss Miller warned about months ago. It is being marketed as standard safe while containing a known inflammatory agent." The crowd erupted. But the final blow came from a source I never expected. My mother, Victoria Sterling, appeared at the edge of the stage. She wasn't the polished icon or the scarred victim anymore. She looked like a woman who had finally run out of filters. She walked up to the microphone, trembling. "I have something to say," she whispered. "I was part of the Aesthetic Council's inner circle for 20 years. I didn't just sell the products, I helped them bury the research. I have the digital keys to the council's private server, the one they discuss the liquidation of Vera. They offered me a plea deal to testify against my daughter, but I'm done lying." She handed a small, encrypted drive to the lead toxicologist. "On this drive," Victoria said, looking at the cameras, "are the records of the payments made by Marcus Vane to the directors of the Global Health Collective. The standard isn't a medical reality, it's a price list." The toxicity trap had backfired. The council had tried to use science as a cage, but Victoria, the person they thought they could control with shame, had just handed me the key to their destruction. By the end of the day, the directors of the GHC were under investigation for fraud. The council's stock didn't just crack, it vanished. Billions of dollars in market value evaporated as the truth about the safe standard hit the news. I walked off the stage and found Victoria sitting on a bench, looking at her hands. "Why did you do it, Mother?" I asked. "You could have taken their deal and lived in luxury." "I looked at the green glow on my face in the mirror every night, Cassandra," she said, not looking up. "I realized that the standard was just a slow-motion suicide. I didn't want to die as a lie. I wanted to be real, even if it hurts." I looked at her. I didn't forgive her for the years of exile, but for the first time, I didn't see an enemy. I saw a human being who was finally starting her own audit. "You'll still have to face the legal consequences, Victoria," I said. "Your testimony means you'll likely serve time for your role in the old campaigns." "I know," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "But for the first time in my life, I'm not worried about how I'll look in the mugshot." I'm going to pause here. If you've ever seen the truth dismantle a standard that was designed to keep you small, I want you to comment the word evidence. Because the council is in chaos, the farmers are back on the grid, and the audit has reached the final, most dangerous chapter.
The top of the world is a cold, silent place where the only thing you hear is the echo of your own ambition. Following the collapse of the GHC and the public disgrace of Marcus Vane, I expected the Aesthetic Council to vanish into the shadows.
Instead, I received a hand-delivered invitation, thick, cream-colored cardstock with a gold seal I had never seen before. No address, just a set of GPS coordinates that led to a brutalist concrete fortress hidden in the Swiss Alps. "Don't go, Cassandra," Sarah pleaded as I packed a small bag. "This isn't a business meeting. This is a lion's den. We've won. The stocks are down. The truth is out. Why risk it?" "Because Marcus Vane was just a loudspeaker," I said, looking at the coordinates. "I've audited the shell companies, Sarah. All the money, all the patents, they lead back to a single source that hasn't changed since the 1970s. I don't want to just win the market. I want to close the ledger on the people who think they own our faces." The fortress was a masterpiece of cold, silent power. I was led through corridors of white marble into a room that was entirely made of glass, suspended over a jagged precipice. Sitting in a simple wooden chair was a woman who looked ancient, yet ageless. Her skin was a map of wrinkles she didn't hide, but her eyes held the sharpness of a laser. This was Helena Vane, the matriarch of the Vane family and the true founder of the Aesthetic Council. "You've caused a lot of noise, Cassandra," Helena said, her voice like dry parchment. She didn't offer me a seat. "You've destroyed Marcus. You've bankrupted Ethereal. You've even managed to turn that vapid creature Victoria into a martyr. It's impressive." "I didn't come for compliments, Helena. I came to tell you that the council is over. The standard is dead. We've decentralized the supply chain, and the ICIJ is publishing the full list of your offshore bribery accounts tomorrow morning." Helena laughed, a sound like autumn leaves skittering on a pavement. "The council isn't a set of bank accounts, you foolish girl. It's a necessity. Humans are biologically hardwired to seek perfection. We didn't create the insecurity, we simply gave it a target. If you destroy us, you don't create freedom, you create chaos. 1,000 smaller predators will rise, selling even more dangerous lies without any standard to regulate them." She stood up, moving with a predatorial grace. "I built this system to control the damage. Yes, we used chemicals. Yes, we manipulated. No, we kept the industry stable. Now you've broken the glass, but you have a choice." She gestured to a terminal on the table. "I am 94 years old. I am ready to retire. I've watched you, Cassandra. You have the one thing I never had, the people's trust. I am offering you the chair. Merge Vera with the remaining infrastructure. You can set the standard. You can make truth the law. You'll have the power to regulate every lipstick and serum on the planet. You can fix the world from the inside." I looked at the terminal. It was the ultimate bonus, the power to be the god of my own movement, to ensure that no girl ever felt the way I did by simply outlawing the lie. "And if I refuse? Then I hit this button," Helena said, her finger hovering over a different key, "and the root network, your precious farmers, will find themselves legally liable for a series of environmental violations I've spent the last month framing them for. I will bury them in 1,000 lawsuits that will last a century. You'll be free, but the people who helped you will be ruined. Choose, Cassandra. Be the queen or be the martyr." I looked out at the mountains. For a moment I saw the face of my mother, the ambition of my father, and the fear in my sister's eyes. I thought about the audit. An audit isn't about choosing the best of two evils.
It's about finding the error in the equation. The error, I whispered, is the chair itself. I didn't look at Helena. I looked at the terminal. I didn't press the merge button, and I didn't press the destroy button. Instead, I took a small USB drive, the one Dr. Eris and I spent 48 hours coding. It was a 0-point virus. "What are you doing?" Helena hissed, her eyes narrowing. "You think the standard is a necessity," I said, plugging the drive into the terminal. "I'm not taking your chair, Helena, and I'm not letting you sue my farmers. I'm releasing the patents." "What?" "Every formula, every chemical process, every standard secret the Council has owned for 50 years, I'm uploading it to the public domain right now. Every small lab, every independent chemist, every person in their kitchen will have access to your research. You can't regulate the market if the market is everyone. You can't sue 1,000 farmers if the whole world knows how to make the product." "You'll kill the industry," Helena screamed, lunging for the terminal. "You'll make Vera worthless. You'll be a nobody." "I started as a nobody, Helena. It's where I'm most comfortable." The screen turned white. A progress bar scrolled. "Open source initialized, 100% complete." The Aesthetic Council's monopoly didn't just break, it evaporated. The standard was no longer a secret kept in a fortress. It was a library owned by humanity. Vera, as a corporate entity, lost its exclusive edge. My net worth plummeted from billions to nearly nothing in a matter of seconds. Helena Vane slumped back into her chair, looking every bit of her 94 years. She was no longer an architect, she was just an old woman in a glass room. I walked out of the fortress. I didn't take the helicopter. I walked down the mountain path until I reached the road. 3 months later, I sat in a small community garden in a town I won't name. My face was bare. My hair was graying at the temples, and I didn't dye it. I was working with a group of local women, teaching them how to distill rosewater using the open-source Vera methods. Sarah called me on a burner phone. "The news is calling it the Great Leveler, Cassie. Ethereal is gone. The Vane Group is in probate, but Vera, the brand, is still alive. People are buying it not because it's a standard, but because they know you were the one who gave them the truth for free." "How are my sisters?" "Beatrice is running a real skin clinic in London. No fillers, just health. Bianca is a teacher. They're happy, Cassie. They're real." "And Victoria?" "She's in a minimum security facility. She's leading a support group for women with body dysmorphia. She sent you a letter. She said she finally likes her mugshot." I smiled and hung up. I looked at my reflection in a bucket of rainwater. I saw the pores. I saw the wrinkles. I saw the glitch that my mother tried to erase. I didn't see a liability. I didn't see an asset. I just saw me. The audit was finally over. The balance was 0, and for the first time in my life, the image was perfectly, beautifully clear.
My dear ones, thank you for listening to this story. It makes me incredibly happy to feel that you are here with me. I try my best for you and post new videos every day, putting a piece of myself into them. If my stories resonate with you, your subscription and viewing of other videos will be the warmest support for me and inspiration to continue telling stories.